Hey y'all, welcome back to the School of Smirk. Today we'll do a quick live interpretation of Shakespeare's Sonnet 71, helping you to bring the classics, bring the works of great artists like Shakespeare into interaction, usefulness in your everyday life. Here we go. I'll recite it first and then we'll interpret it. We'll talk through it. So, okay, here it goes. Sonnet 71, William Shakespeare. No longer mourn me when I am dead. Then you shall hear the surly sullen bell give warning to the world that I have fled from this vile world with vilest worms to dwell. Nay, if you read this line, remember not the hand that writ it, for I love you so that in your sweet thoughts would I be forgot, if thinking on me should then make you woe. If, I say, you should look upon this verse, when I, perhaps, compounded am with clay, do not so much as my name rehearse, but let your love, even as my life, decay, lest the wise world look into your moan, and mock you with me when I am gone. That's Sonnet 71. I hope I didn't make any mistakes. That's how it sits in my memory. So let's just begin. We'll just talk through it. And again, the live interpretations, we're not trying to cover everything. We are discovering the way to interpret art. We are enacting and embodying the way which the messages that such great art as Shakespeare's, the metaphysical message which those works and artists and their works pass, we embody the way that reflects reconciliation with their message, the way which reflects how they teach us to act, how they teach us to treat other things, how they teach us to treat energy itself. So we interact in this way with the works, and through the works we find confirmation and more information about these metaphysical principles, more implications, more development, more understanding of their sources and their nature and our nature and the nature of the universe we live in. So as I read, I'm also embodying and therefore attempting to show the ways which reflect the message being passed. And I have these memorized, and these works are to be memorized, and there are mnemonic devices built within them, even rhyme itself, in order to help us to walk with these, to have these in our memory, to have many such works in our memory, and to live every day with them, to come into interaction every day with them without assumption. And so as we read them, these will be live interpretations from today. This is our irrefutably particular way of being related to the work today. So we'll hit on some things and we'll leave out some other things. We'll see what today brings, what our real selfless interaction with the work brings today. So Sonnet 71. Let's begin. No longer mourn me when I am dead. So immediately, this is a conversation about death and therefore about life and death. And the idea is that this thing, death, by whatever the artist, whatever Shakespeare is talking about, it has been in some way redefined. It no longer is defined as having the quality of sadness. It's not something to be mourned about anymore. Something, and the message being passed, has redefined death, has changed death and taken it away from being something to mourn about, something to be sad. No longer mourn me when I'm dead. No longer mourn me when I am dead. Then you shall hear the surly, sullen bell give warning to the world that I have fled. So the point at which death is redefined and which you stop mourning is when the surly, sullen bell gives warning to the world that I have fled. It's at the moment when an inanimate thing gains not only human characteristics like being surly, but also becomes able to speak to us. And so we see it's actually the bell, which is a perfect embodiment of that which could endow others, things that are inanimate or distinct from the self, with likeness to self. And um, which also would redefine death. So it's this. So the bell is just a sound, it's just energy. And yet we know, we all have the experience that if the bell tolls, we have a thought. We think, oh, is it the hour? Is it on the half hour? What time is it? Or did somebody die? Or is somebody getting married? Or, hey, that sounded like blah, blah, blah. Every day, this energy proves its consequence. And the context, the metaphysical context in which energy is equivalent, is an infinite one, which is the same one whose implications justify our ability to come into the selfless, unassuming interaction with anything, an inanimate object like a bell or a stone, um, with unconditional, unassuming praise and giving. We know that all things are ultimate, have the same equally limitless potential for meaning and value and truth as anything else. Um, in that infinite context, and so we can come into interaction with the bell or energy or the words which make up the words which are the thought which make up such a work as the sonnet with equal praise, unconditional giving and loving selflessness. And it's when we do that that we allow something like a bell to speak to us, to give warning to the world. Um, we find the self in it and it in ourselves. We reveal by selflessness our irrefutably particular way of being related to it, which is an ever changing truth of self, and which, as it is ever changing, is unknowable ahead of time, and so upon its arrival redefines us. That new meaning revealed our ever changing, irrefutably particular way of being related to that bell or that other by witnessable by way of our choice to be selfless, having justified infinity in our consciousness, leads us to reveal a new meaningful relationship to the other thing. And when we do, we realize it's surly sullen and it's giving it not only can speak to us, but it takes on aspects of ourselves. What we do is we reveal that way of being related, which is the unique light, which is a shared truth. It's the way that it's the if our uniqueness is an ever-changing way of being irrefutably related to all things, then at each moment our uniqueness is shared with one other thing. That is, there's always a thread. One aspect of our uniqueness is also the aspect of another's uniqueness, and that is our way of being related to that thing in the plexus, the plexus of threads, which are relationships, which are all relationships between all things. And so we see that we will stop mourning death. Death is redefined. At the same time that a concept or that a way allows, an understanding allows bells, inanimate things to speak, and to also find shared truth or likeness to self, truth by relationship. So that's no longer mourn me when I am dead, then you shall hear the surely sullen bell give warning to the world that I have fled from this vile world with vilest worms to dwell. And so we see that there are distinctions between types of worlds, that humanity can choose to either live in a world, um, that world versus earth or existence, something world in literature indicates the meaning, the meaningful reality. How do we engage the degree to which we engage consciousness can either, we'll see, reveal a wise world or a vile world. The vile world is one which has not engaged the full consciousness, that is not acting in accordance, in a way reconciled with all of its awarenesses. Consciousness is the recognition of meaningful patterns, and human consciousness in particular recognize the pattern of not only uniqueness, irrefutable particularity, but also infinity. And it is when we don't act according to both of those, when we aren't able to reconcile them, that we find a limited reality, um, limited, isolated reality, one which is defined um, by singular meanings and understandings instead of uh, finding an indefinable and limitless world through the additional recognition that all humanity has. We recognize infinity in existence. We just don't necessarily reconcile it with uniqueness and act in a way which reflects reconciliation with the implications of infinity. And so we see that the one who is not to be warned, the one who has redefined death, the one who has found that which allows all things to become, to speak, to gain new meaning, to gain likeness to self, this one flees from the vile world, flees from that world, that mundane, um, the world which is defined by singular definition, encyclopedic knowledge, um, which doesn't recognize the limitless potential for meaningful truth in all things, the ever-changing truth of things, and is willing to dwell. Again, this is we find another word frequently used, dwell instead of live, and we see that dwell, it can be an ongoing existence, a type of that there's a type of aliveness, there's a type of ongoing aliveness which can happen. And we see it's that aliveness, or the one who can achieve that dwelling within and with other things. Perhaps a life beyond physical life, as we'll see, is one which also doesn't, or is willing unconditionally, even if you say something is vile or something looks vile or something, that one with all of this knowledge which redefines death, which doesn't mourn it anymore, which has understood it differently, which has allowed all things of every type and nature to speak, um, their ever changing, meaningful relationship to self. This one not only flees the limited vile world, but goes unconditionally. It also has justified unconditional giving to anything, like a worm, for example, the thing the vile world finds vile. And in doing this has engaged the process which allows them to dwell, to live beyond the limited physical body. Then he goes on, nay, if you should read this line, remember not the hand that writ it. So if you read this, if you're interacting with this, the point of this is not about the physical body. It's not about um, a reality in which an ego is trying to attain something. And the reason is because he loves you so. That is, there's a type of love, again, the unconditional love, agape in Greek, um, that in your sweet thoughts would I be forgot, if thinking on me then should bring you woe, should make you woe. So we see that he loves, it is because of the type of way he loves you. It's because of this unconditional love, which comes from this infinity, which is the point of this, which extinguishes death, um, that we also see redefined what are sweet thoughts. The purpose of this, and it shows that he would be forgot. He, as he it truly is, would be forgot if, when you were reading this, you didn't understand the degree to which he loves you. He loves you so that in your sweet thoughts would he be forgot, if thinking on him should bring you woe. We see that if in your sweet thoughts thinking on him should make you woe, you have missed the point. There's the limit of your sweetness, that is your degree of giving, is not selfless. It's not unconditional. It has not yet understood the message. He loves you so, the particular type of way that he loves you, the unconditional way, the way reflecting reconciliation of the message being passed, is such that if he should make you woe, he would be forgotten. You would have not understood him. It would be better that you entirely forget him. And also, because he unconditionally loves you, he would rather not exist than bring you pain. Um, He loves you so that in your sweet thoughts would he be forgot if thinking on should make you woe. Because he loves you unconditionally, because he loves unconditionally, and that's the message that he's passing. He would be forgotten. You would have lost him if thinking on him should bring you woe. If thinking that his physical self and its demise is a sad thing, death is something to mourn, you would have forgotten him. You would have missed that he is unconditional love. If, then he goes on, if I say, he puts in parentheses, I say. He shows you that in the work, in the energy that constitutes the work, the words, which are very sounds denoting ideas, thought itself, energy itself, equivalent like the sound of the bell. If I say, he shows you that it is him saying it. He goes out of the way to explicitly show you it's me talking. It's my thought written down, interacting with you in posterity after my physical, the hand that writ it, is gone. We see that this message extinguishes death and allows for an interaction beyond physical self. If I say, you should look upon this verse, and we'll see upon and into, just like vile world and wise world, as distinct as meaning holding, property holding, revealing distinctions, intentionally passing the message in the work. If I say, and he shows you, this is him, this is the energy of self is preserved in his thought, in his written word. If I say you should look upon this verse, when I perhaps compounded am with clay, he shows you that the questions are if that his I, the self itself, unique self, in a world where energy is equivocated, it means this physical self, the smack of a hand, is as consequential as the thought, the energy, the unique thought of self, the irrefutably particular way where we find ourselves meaningfully related to something else like a bell. That is, if that's a unique thought, if our unique light of thought revealed, our ever-changing truth of self revealed to consciousness, is as much ourself as our physical self. And if it's preserved in writing, if we write if I say, that is us. The I is redefined just like death is redefined in light of the message being passed, the infinity message. If I say you should look upon this verse, that's when you look upon it as opposed to into it. If your sweet thought still is something that makes you woe at death, that is, if your sweet thought is still limited to physical life, as opposed to being sweet in the sense that it unconditionally and selflessly gives, unassuming with praise to all other things of every type, state, and nature. If I say you should look upon this verse, when I perhaps compounded am with clay, and then he shows this, again, the I is only perhaps. That is the thing in question. Is the I compounded with clay? Or is the I here in your posterity 500 years after Shakespeare died still interacting consequentially in a metaphysical context, in an infinite universe where in infinity, another implication is that all things, or any type of interaction, whether it's physical or energetic, is life itself, is interaction, is life. And so we see that his I and his self and his aliveness is, in light of the message, something which can, if the unique light of thought is preserved, come into real interaction, real aliveness, consequential interaction into posterity. So we see the attachment of this deathlessness, the sort of entropic deathlessness inherent in oneness, but also this sort of immortality in the word, in the written word, that you can, if you preserve your unique thought in writing, you can come in, or any other abstract form, you can come into real consequential interaction according to the implications of infinity, according to energy equivalence. If I say you should look upon this verse when I perhaps compounded am with clay, do not so much as by name rehearse. It's crucial here to realize he wants you to recognize this is not about him, this is not about ego, this is not about some sort of win or some sort of manipulation, that this is about giving, this is about selflessness. Just like he doesn't want his physical hand, nor does he want his name remembered, in the case that that the message isn't achieved. His project is to please, referencing Prospero's epilogue. He wants to give you this message, not to give you himself, not to be preserved or legacied himself. His goal is to give you this. His goal is to give you the message. His goal is to make you stop having your sweet thought woe, to stop rehearsing a name, to stop rehearsing a name and mastering and limiting and making academic and pedantic these works, and rather to look into them, not upon them, to be selfless, just like you could be selfless at the sound of a bell, and so find in them, reveal their irrefutably particular properties and those relationships, the relationships, those properties, the relationships between the abstract variables to yourself, and so to learn the message. That's the goal, to learn the message. Infinity, which will redefine the self, ultimately extinguish death, allow selfless interaction into posterity. And so then he says, but let your love even as my life decay. So instead of trying to rehearse his name and trying to control the thing, trying to define the thing, to limit the thing, let your love even as his life decay. And he has already shown you that his aliveness is something that doesn't decay. The aliveness he's talking about, his ability to dwell with the vilest of worms, to dwell in anything and everything. His aliveness is something which doesn't decay. And neither does the love that's being suggested, that there's a type of love. Love alters not. It's an unconditional love. Love alters not when alteration finds. Um, this unconditional love, the love being taught, the love being shown, the one that he says he loves you so, or in other words, he loves you in such a type of way or to such a degree, but also so much. This love is one that, just like the life that he's talking about, the life redefined by energy equivalence, the life and death redefined in light of infinity, the death extinguished in light of infinity, would not decay. It would go on. If I say, he shows you, I'm here interacting with you now consequentially. It doesn't decay, and neither does unconditional love. Love alters not when alteration finds, nor bends the remover to remove, Sonnet 116. He's showing you that this love is unconditional. This love is perpetual. It is a complete selfless giving to all things of every type, state, and nature, as per the implications of infinity. That our truth is an irrefutably particular truth of self, ever changing, um, by way of relationship to all other things in an ever changing plexus. That all things of every state, nature have an equally limitless potential for value, meaning, and truth. Because of that, we see that he's he's wielding his technique, his pen, his spear. He's shaking his spear at you, to show you that let your love even as my life decay. That to learn through this that it is a type of love, love being a degree of focus, a selfless degree of focus, and one which we can autonomize and perpetuate if we understand the message. Let your love, learn this new definition for love, decay even as a life which doesn't decay. Receive the message. Do not rehearse the name. Listen selflessly and receive the message, which redefines death and allows for immortal life to come to interaction with posterity as the energy of self, and therefore which also holds the unconditional love, which also doesn't decay or change, but wears this world out to the ending doom. 55, Sonnet 55. And at the same time, he gives you your double meaning in case you haven't got the message yet. He says, if it's hurting you, if you're rehearsing the name, if you're worrying about the hand that writ it, if you're mourning the death, let your love even as his life decay. If you think, if you didn't get the message and you think death is still there and is a termination and that he is compounded with clay, not it, not he, that it's not him here saying if to you, if you still think that, just let your love go. That love, that lesser love, a love of the vile world as opposed to the wise world, the love of a humanity which only engages its awarenesses up to the point of the pattern of uniqueness, rather than including the ever taken account of indefinable, limitless, endless, infinite aspect of the universe we live in. Um, if you only are engaging that vile, limited, mundane, and not acting as the link between the mundane and the limitless, then let it go. Let him go. He doesn't want to be remembered. He doesn't need to be rehearsed. And he doesn't want you to woe. It's better that you don't even consider him. Um, and then he says, he concludes, especially in this form, always concludes line 13 and 14 in a culminating gesture. Lest the wise world. So he shows there's another world. There's a world, a reality whose meanings and values and truths are all qualified, are all justified by this metaphysical concept, by this precept, this premise about the nature of things and the implications of that. Um, the wise world would look into your moan. So he shows you there's a different way of looking, a different degree of love, a different degree of selflessness. So they could look into your moan instead of looking upon words and forgetting that they are energy themselves, and not only that, but the unique light of thought preserved. That would be looking upon the wise world, the one whose world is redefined and who has the deathlessness, who is themselves speaking in posterity, who has gained all the benefits and understood the message and reconciled it in consciousness. This wise world, this world redefined in light of the message being passed, look into things like a moan. It's our second sound, like the bells toll. The wise world looks into the moan. Listen selflessly to the moan, to the sound. And they would mock you with me. That is, the wise world, those who understood the message, and find their world redefined in light, find the universe redefined in light of it and themselves, know that he is with them, even when he's gone. So, lest the wise world look into your moan and mock you with me when I am gone. He is right now. He is at all presence in which exist his work and are revealed and read and interpreted his work. He is present, interacting, and he is mocking you. If in these many double lines of double meaning, you have been the one that didn't receive the message, that weren't selfless enough to allow the irrefutably particular properties showing these meanings um, to interact with you. So the wise world is the one that is with him when he's gone, and the one which knows that he is interacting, having given the wise world the thought. The wise world is with him, having understood that he can interact in the present, in posterity after his physical death, and they would all mock this lower, this unwillingness, inability, this tendency to not interact with all things in your world in a way which reflects all of the surroundings which we take advantage of and have taken advantage of as humans for time immemorial. We have always recognized, humanity has always taken account of um, indefinable, uncontrollable, unknowable factors and forces. We've recognized infinity. We know paradox. We know bothness. We know duality. We know and through many different paths. We know through science, just like we know through philosophy, that things are ultimately indefinable. The irrefutable particularity of things is something that's inherently always changing. It's not something you could statistically average. And so this wise world mocks. They say, we tried. We're still trying. We're going to keep trying. But man, they are stubborn as could be. That ego keeps blinding so many. But these works stay. These works are preserved. They keep interacting in posterities with the project to please. The hope that they can show through their multiplicity, through different uh, through their multiplicity of forms and across all of history, all the links, the messengers can pass enough manners and modes, angles and aspects of the same thing to be sympathetic, intuitive, available, approachable to all the different circumstances of posterity. Um, so I hope you enjoyed this quick read through, touching on a lot of big concepts, quickly applying a lot of large meanings, and making brave interpretations about things. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it at least inspires you, inspire being to breathe in. I hope it gives you a little inspiration to come into selfless interaction with more of these works. There are so many available, and the best thing to do is to walk up to them without assumption, according to the message they teach. And so allow yourself to interact truly, consequentially, now with the artist as they are, as the energy of their thought, which is equal to their physical body, to come into a selfless interaction with them, allow them to interact truly in a condition only now, otherwise impossible, and so to live now, and to interact with them, selflessly. So you not only can see that which is irrefutably particularly there, their thought as their unique thought as they preserved it, but also to reveal the way that you are irrefutably particularly related to them. And so to reveal the unique light, which is the shared truth of self and other, the way that both of your uniquenesses are only at that moment in the ever-changing plexus of the universe. Thank you for joining us for Sonnet 71. William Shakespeare, Sonnet 71, as a live interpretation.